Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today's build is going to be another 6 Crow Beastmaster, but this one's going to be a low life build in which instead of us doing melee attacks and buffing our crows to do damage, the crows will do attacks and they're going to buff us to do damage, as well as give us a buttload of ward, which is going to really increase your survivability to probably one of the toughest Beastmasters I've ever played, and we're not even close to min-maxed. This skill is going to revolve around having your 6 crows constantly healing you because you're at low life, and each one of them will give you 500 ward every 4 seconds. So that's going to be 6 crows, 500 ward, 3000 ward per 4 seconds. And then on top of that, every time they do an attack or heal you, they have a 30% chance to give you an aspect of the crow buff, which will give you added flat melee lightning damage. So we'll be running this with Swipe and Warcry. You're going to have a lot of crit chance. You'll have aspect of the Shark, aspect of the Lynx. You're going to have a lot of crit multi. And then of course once you get 20 to 30 stacks of those aspect of the crows, you'll have another additional 60 to 90 added lightning damage to your swipe attacks, which allows you to do really great damage. The crows with just a couple of stats of minion regen flat health is going to allow them to have really high survivability. If they do die, you can run around and you resummon them all at once, which is really cool once they disappear. So very high survivability. I've been running it around on corruption. We got to corruption like between 110 and 115 on empowered timelines, with running with multiple, even up to quad damage multipliers for the enemies. And we only died a few times by running full trains. It has very high survivability. So let's go ahead and get into it, the skills, the interactions, and just how it all works. For skills, I'm running Ice Thorns, Summon Storm Crows, Summon Wolf, Warcry, and Swipe. None of these have plus levels, they're all level 20. For Ice Thorns, we have it set up to proc when we get hit. It'll give us some armor, so we've got 3 points in Dagger Thorns, 2 points in Bramble Armor. This gives it a 20% chance when we get hit to proc. 4 points in Spell Thorns is another 20% chance, so we'll have a 40% chance every time we get hit for it to proc. 1 point in Anemophily, and then 1 point in Thorn Shield means that when it does proc, we are granted a shield for 1 second that gives us a flat 40 armor, and then the Ice Thorns will fire outwards. We got 4 points in Bulb Shield, so a 40% chance to recast, so there's a 40% chance when we get hit, it will proc, and then a 40% chance on that it will cast twice. Then we got 2 points in Bark Shield for another 40 flat added damage. This gives us 80 flat added armor for each one of them that has been procced in the last second. And 3 points in Eternal Protection brings that duration from 1 second up 90% to 1.9 seconds. So we get 80 additional armor for 1.9 seconds every time that it procs. If you train a whole bunch of mobs up and you have them all hit you at the same time, your armor will skyrocket and your defenses will go up temporarily. For Summon Storm Crows, we have this set up to have 6 crows, and then we have them set up to give us int, to buff us with aspect of the crow, and then for them to just absolutely unload healing and ward on top of us. So all of our points are going to go into the northeastern section. So we've got 1 point in Avis, which gives them some more cast speed, 3 points in aspect of the crow. Now this means that every time that they do a hit, it doesn't matter whether it's healing you or attacking a mob, every time they do it, there's a 30% chance that they will proc an aspect of the crow buff on you for 8 seconds, which will stack unlimitedly and give you 3 melee lightning and spell lightning damage, flat added damage. Then we got 1 point in Wisdom of the Storm. This allows them to cast it on allies, but we're not running any other allies, so they'll only be casting it on you. And then that allows us to put 5 points in Ornithology, so that per crow we get 10 intelligence. We have 6 crows. This means that when we have all 6 out, we gain 60 points of intelligence. Now you're probably wondering, why would you ever want that? Nothing scales with it. We'll get to that in a second. Then we got 1 point in Navigator, so that our non-crow companions gain aspect of the crow when we do, but it has 50% reduced duration on them. We are not running any other companions, at least not yet. There's a very good chance that I'm going to want to run a solo, not a solo wolf, but like one wolf or one saber that has lightning damage, because of the fact that we can get 20 or 30 stacks of it. It would give our companion those stacks as well, that would be a huge amount. However, they would only have about half the stacks we do since it has half the duration, but it would still be very effective. And of course, we would go down to 5 crows from 6. And I've heard people saying they've had a lot of problems with trying to run other companions on top of crows because of the fact it summons them and they were summoning over each other. But we'll try that in a future build. Then we've got 1 point in good berries. Stormcrows will fly to companions that are below half health and heal them. This has a 10-second cooldown and it scales with healing effectiveness. This is very important because this is the basis of about everything that makes this build work. Then we've got 1 point in Winds of Restoration. So now the Stormcrows can also fly to us if we're below half health and heal us. This is where it gets good. Now with Silver Berries, the good berries now also applies ward, so they will heal us for not only 75 health, but they will also give us 300 ward when we're below half health. You have to be under half health in order for that to proc, but each individual crow can do this, which means that if you're at low life right now without stacking any healing effectiveness and we have 6 crows, that means every 10 seconds we would gain 1800 ward. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but we're going to make it a lot. With 3 points in Forager, you now increase the cooldown recovery speed of that ability to heal from 10 seconds down to about 4 seconds, which means every 4 seconds you'll get 1800 ward on top of getting 450 health or so. Now, it gets better. We stack some healing effectiveness along with a lot of health so that they can't ever get us to half health with Anzanguis and Last Steps of the Living On. Every time they heal us with all their heals, the Anzanguis will work it down before you ever hit half health. And then with healing effectiveness, just 100% healing effectiveness, you can get 600 ward every 4 seconds per crow. So what that means is every 4 seconds you are essentially gaining about 3600 ward, which is a huge amount, and that kind of generation is so much on top of what you're generating from Anzanguis and Last Steps of the Living that you just have so much generation. Your survivability is just huge with this build. Now, I'm not min-max here, but if you can get to a point, even if you don't find Exalted, but you just find some really good tier 5 rolls, if you do find some Exalted health, that's even better. If you get to a point where you have 3000 life on the Beastmaster, which is possible, especially with dual health 1x2 idols, you can get to a point where you could then take about 200% healing effectiveness, maybe even slightly higher. You might be able to get to like 250 or 300% healing effectiveness. You'd have to build into the Druid tree a little bit, and you would get to the point where you should be getting almost 1000 ward per crow every 4 seconds, which means 6000 ward every 4 seconds, which is a huge amount. And with all that int that we're going back to, you have a lot of ward retention, 240% ward retention from this, which allows for that not to decay very fast and for you to stack up between 5 and 10,000 ward almost at all times. And you generate that back every 4 seconds, so you're taking hits, you have damage reduction because you have Berserker when you're low life. You're just very, very hard to kill. It's one of the tankiest Beastmasters I've ever played, and we haven't even built into dodge. You could probably do a Serpent Strike version of this and do really, really well with a lot of dodge. Then we have Summon Wolf. Summon Wolf is only here. The only thing you care about is the Pack Hunters for that +1 maximum companion. I'm not even going to go over the rest of the tree because none of it matters. For Warcry, Warcry is set up to give us crit chance, attack speed, more flat damage, and go off every 5 seconds so that we can use it whenever we need it. So we got 2 points in Deep War, 4 points in Battle Cry for that 100% increased crit chance, 1 point in Staggering War, 1 point in Kinetic Scream, 2 points in Shredding Howl, and then 1 point in Shallow Breath. This allows us to do it every 5 seconds instead of 10 seconds, so that when it wears off, it's more likely that you'll be able to use it on the next rare or boss that you encounter. 1 point in Juggernaut, so that after we cast it, we are invulnerable for 1 second. 1 point in Berserker, so that you get Berserk on use. That means that if you attack things within a second, you start gaining stacks of the Berserker. You can have a maximum of 10 stacks. Each one gives 4 melee physical damage, which we are more lightning based in this build, but it still adds damage. That means you can get up to 40 with this. With 4 points of brutality, you can now have up to 14 stacks, which means you can have up to 56 flat add damage. It also adds a 48% duration, so instead of having to get a hit every second, it's every 1.48 seconds. It gives you a little bit more leeway on being able to not hit something for just a tad longer. And then 3 points in Fury Strikes means as you gain those stacks, you can get up to a maximum of 60% more attack speed, which is a huge amount and really helps boost you up, especially when you're starting to stack the aspect of the shark. Then we have Swipe. And we have swipe set up to do lightning damage and have the lightning tag. Now you are still doing a lot of physical damage as well as lightning damage, but the lightning damage is what's really boosting our damage, especially since every aspect of the crow buff we get is another 3 added flat lightning damage. So we've got 1 point in the Storm Claw, then we've got 2 points in Yomjul's Guidance for +6 lightning damage with every attack. 5 points in Storm Scour gives us 75% lightning penetration, which is huge. 4 points in Aspect of the Panther will give us some global damage. 3 points in Wild Calling, so that we'll have a chance to proc the Wolves, which will hit for the same amount of hit damage we do, but in a larger AoE. 1 point in Feline Hunter for some more attack speed. 3 points in Ambush for more crit chance, and 1 point in Apex Predator for some more global critical strike multiplier. For passives, we got 25 points in the Primalist base class with 6 points in Gift of the Wilderness, 8 points in Natural Attunement, 1 point in Harmony of Blades because we are dual wielding, 5 points in Hunter's Restoration, and then the big one, 5 points in Berserker because we will always be at low life, so we take 30% less damage and we do 100% more melee damage, which really helps swipe do more damage for us, especially lightning and physical. And then we've got 86 points in the Beastmaster with 8 points in Ursane Strength, 5 points in Boarheart, 5 points in Porcine Constitution, 1 point in Savagery, 1 point in Ambush, 1 point in Rending Maul, 1 point in Hunters of the Deep, 3 points in Axe and Claw, 3 points in Primal Strength, 1 point in Life in the Wilderness, 5 points in the Circle of Life. Then we get 1 point in Dragon Slayer, 8 points in Ocean Maul, 1 point in Feeding Frenzy so that you can now stack the aspect of the Shark, 10 points in Primal Aspect so all those buffs last longer, 5 points in Cry of the Lynx with 6 points in Serrated Claws. We will put the Stormcrow on autocast so that its Crow Storm will constantly be going off, which counts as using a minion ability. It has a 10-second cooldown, which means it will proc the Cry of the Lynx, or the aspect of the Lynx if you will, every time that you use it. That means that it would last for 5 seconds, but we've got 100% increased duration, which means it lasts 10 seconds, so you can have 100% uptime of Aspect of the Lynx, which gives you 100% more critical strike chance, 100% stun chance, and 120% critical strike multiplier, which is huge for the build. We then have 10 points in Viper Fangs for the melee attack speed because that's a huge buff, and then 1 point in Force of Nature for that 6th companion. Then for items and idols, so there are 4 uniques that I'm wearing, but you don't have to have all of them, at least not to begin, but to min-max these are probably your best choice. We've got Insanguis, which this one's pretty much the mandatory one that you're going to want because you want to run low life. It doesn't work if you don't run low life because they'll never heal you and therefore you never get the ward. We then have Last Steps to the Living, which just complements the Insanguis. So those two are like the first ones. You can run this with 5 companions. You'll get slightly less wards, so you don't have to have Order's Legacy. But this one will give you that +1 maximum companion. And then just for quality of life, we have the Conundrum. Now, you normally, as long as you don't take any leech in the passives or in the skill tree or put any on gear, you will not do any leech. So you don't have to wear anything. The reason that I wear the Conundrum is, one, not for the leech and not for the physical damage that it gives, but it's because, one, it stops you from regenerating health, so that'll help lower the amount of health that you have, and then also the big one is 100% of potion health will be converted to ward, which means when you run over a bunch of potions, it won't just fill up your life and suddenly you won't be healed by them and you won't have any generation coming from Insanguis. Instead, you just get more ward and it just stacks even higher. So that's really nice, especially if you see your ward drop, you take some big hits, you can spam some potions and bring it right back up. And then for the crafted items, so we've got the Crystal Sword, which is a really cool new base sword that they have with new implicits. It comes with elemental melee attack speed, so swipe will be faster. On top of that, it has a really fast base attack. And then it comes with up to 200% melee elemental damage, which is huge as we're running lightning damage, which is a elemental type. Then on the main hand, we have a dagger. The dagger comes with some base critical strike chance. This one also came with exalted increased lightning damage, which was pretty big, and we threw melee lightning damage on it. It doesn't have chance to shock on hit. This obviously is not the most optimized version. The build planner still hasn't been updated, so I can't put out a build planner that has all the optimal fixes you want. But instead of health on kill or chance to bleed on hit, you definitely want to make sure you get some shock chance on hit on both of them, because as doing lightning damage, it will increase the amount of damage that you are doing to those enemies. And for our ring, we got some critical strike avoidance, health, minion dodge, and some lightning damage. We got minion health regen, lightning damage, critical strike avoidance on the belt, as well as hybrid health. You do want to stack as much health as possible. On our other ring, we have a coral ring, which The +5 health regen isn't a big factor because we don't regen health thanks to the amulet. So the +6 vitality is 60 flat health. That's pretty huge. It helps increase our maximum health. Then we've got a huge amount of critical strike avoidance on it, as well as flat health, 1 point of int, and some necrotic damage, which again you would want lightning damage or something with minions there instead. For the relic, we have increased healing effectiveness, some minion health, we have regular flat health, and then some void resist. And then we have, for the gloves, melee attack speed, minion health, poison resist, and some hybrid health. Again, this build is not min-max. We don't even have capped resistances. We did recently hit 100% critical strike avoidance when we grabbed the blessing, so we no longer get critically struck. Most of the gameplay you watch will not have 100% critical strike avoidance in it, and you'll still see how tanky we are. And then once the resistances are capped, obviously you'll become even more tanky, and as your maximum health increases and you go a little higher with the healing effectiveness and grant even more ward, you'll become even more tanky. So still a lot of room for tankiness in this build. And then of course for damage, getting exalted items with melee lightning damage on them will of course also increase the damage that you can put out. And then for the idols, so 1x2s with increased and flat health are going to be the best ones. The 1x1s you put in, just cover your resistances the best you can. And then I also have a healing effectiveness idol, and you don't want to put on like more than one of these. You don't even have to put one of these on. You could do healing effectiveness completely on gear and get 2 more health idols just because, but I found that I was getting more ward with just this on instead of 2 more 1x2 health idols, so we switched to 1 healing effectiveness because this healing effectiveness is raising that amount of ward that you're getting. So 58% increase of 300 ward means that we're getting roughly about 470 ward just by adding this idol to it per crow. And then that brings us of course to the crow itself. If you look at them, every time that they're healing me here, my ward is jumping. Right here sitting down, we sit at around 6,000 ward. And then for the character sheet, as you can see, we do not have capped resistances. In fact, we only have 16% fire, only 26% poison. We don't even have capped physical. There's lots of room of improvement of getting even more defense into this build. We also run no dodge. If you decided to not run swipe, do a little less damage with the whole lightning, but run like serpent strike and stack dodge with a 2-handed polearm, you can do that, and you will get a lot more dodge, which will raise your EHP. That might be decent for, say, arena running, but right now you just don't need it. There's so much ward generation, it does just fine with just swipe. You can see we have a huge amount of ward retention. 240% of that is straight just from the int. Actually 244% because we have 1 int on a piece of gear. And then for our actual damage types, we've got just over 300% critical strike multiplier. However, I believe that does go up if I actually cast this. Yeah, you can see with aspect of the links, it goes up to 364%. We have our lightning damage that we got off the sword. That's the only increase we have. And then 200% melee damage. Both melee damage and attack speed will go up as you attack and get stacks of aspect of the shark. And then for how to play this build, skill rotation. So the way I have it set up, I don't ever cast the Frenzy Totem unless I'm at a boss like Orbis or one of the Quest Echo bosses or a very high health rare, because you don't really need to. I put the Crowstorm on autocast. Obviously I put that on autocast so that it's always going off, so that I can always get the aspect of the links, because you want that critical strike chance and that critical strike multiplier. Then you just run around and attack with swipe. Use Warcry when you need it. If you constantly use Warcry, you might run into some mana issues, so you don't want to put it on autocast. But as we attack here, you can see the kind of damage I'm doing, and it's not bad. Like I said, you stay at about that 6,000 ward. It's very tanky. You're doing about 10k crits on the training dummy. If I throw down a totem, we can get a little bit more attack speed out of it. It gives us some flat damage, so you're doing 10 to 12k crits. As you're in battle, the Stormcrows will get more hits because they won't just be healing you every 4 seconds, they'll actually be attacking mobs. And right now we're only getting 5 or 6 stacks of aspect of the Crow. When you're in battle, you get like 20 to 30 stacks, which is roughly the equivalent of doing about 30k damage on the training dummy per hit. You'll also get more stacks of aspect of the Shark, which increases your melee damage, which would make that damage go even higher. And then of course that would also increase your attack speed to where your attack speed, instead of doing 1 to 2 attacks per second here, you can get to like 7. I've seen 700% attack speed in some of the gameplay when we were streaming yesterday, so we've gotten it to stack quite high. And then just to show you guys how tanky it is, we're going to go in a mono and just let stuff attack us on an empowered, corrupted map. So when we go here, we can go ahead and go into this Legendary, we have 115 corruption. I know, not super high, but it is an empowered high corruption map. We have, for the enemies, 111% elemental damage, 107% elemental damage, and 57% more health and damage. Lots of damage stats. Let's see if we can find one here that gives him even more damage. We got chance to chill. Nope, not looking at that one. What do we got here? Enemies have endurance. There's bound to be one here that's got something that's more health. They take less damage. We already did that one. What's this one got? Chance to slow. That sounds painful. Increased damage and critical strike chance. Here we go. We're going to start that one. They have a lot of modifiers for more damage. If they're elemental doing lightning damage, like the lightning spiders, those will probably kill us. But just to give you an example, let's round up some mobs and just show you kind of the tankability of this build. Got a lot of physical mobs here, so it won't be so bad. There's some ice elementals. That'll be nice. Alright, we'll just stand here in the midst of this, and we have a crow down. Look at that survivability. Not even attacking. My crows are dying though, so we're not getting any ward gen. We might die here. They're gonna die before us. See if we can stand here long enough to get them back up. We did no attacks. We are just surviving right now by the bricks of our teeth. Look at all that damage. Like, this is how tanky this build is. My storm crows are like dying. They need some more health regen, but oh, close call there. Still no attacks. Come on, birdies. There you go. Finally, we got a death. That's how tanky this build is, in corruption with empowered. And again, we don't have capped resistance. You can get even more health, which will increase it. And of course, doing some more minion health regen for your crows will help keep them alive better. Normally they don't die, but of course we have a lot of damage going on here, and we're trying to stay in one spot, which was putting them in the dots. But you can just see how tanky that is. Alright, that's going to be it for this build guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope it's easy to follow. It is pretty easy to put together. Again, other than the uniques, it's not super gear dependent, so you do want to have the low life uniques obviously to play the low life build, but overall it's a very enjoyable, very tanky, and you don't really have to focus on your health too much. Sometimes you have to pay attention to the modifiers you give maps. Like I said there, if you start doing quad damage multipliers in a corruption mode, probably not the best choices, but there we're just trying to prove a point. Alright, as always, stay safe, travelers.